Welcome, dear listeners, to the first episode of Origins of Enchantment, where we go into the mysterious tales and ancient magic that reside in these majestic peaks. Today, we journey to the very top of the Enchanted Mountains, where the dark clouds dwell, a place shrouded in mystery and powerful enchantment. Whether you are relaxing for the day or taking a drive, let's put on a little music and then come along with me as I tell this story. The dark clouds are not just any clouds. They are ancient live beings who carry with them the weight of a forgotten history, a tale of exile, power, and resilience. These clouds are not merely weather events. They are guardians of old magic, banished from a distant kingdom by a king who feared their power. In this story, we will learn how the dark clouds came to call the Enchanted Mountains their home. You see, the dark clouds was born of ancient magic, woven from the threads of forgotten spells. Our story begins in a kingdom far from here, a land ruled by a king who craved power above all else. In the early days, the dark clouds drifted through the kingdom, bringing rain and shade, nurturing the land with its enchanted essence, and always careful to hide its great magical powers. One day, a great storm came and covered the kingdom for many days and nights. The king called all the sorcerers to cast spells to stop the storm. However, the spells were useless against the force of nature. The storm continued to ruin the villages and flood the crops. The king went to the dark clouds and begged it to make the great storm go away. However, the dark clouds rumbled and refused, and this angered the king, and he blamed the dark clouds. The reason the black clouds refused to do anything because it understood this was nature's way, and it would not interfere. Even the magical world knew the mortal world needed balance, and this was its way of leveling things out. The storm was feeding the earth with water and nourishment. But humans didn't understand that, because sometimes they were selfish and only worried about their own comfort. When the great storm finally stopped, the king believed it was because the dark clouds used its magic to finally make the sun shine and make the flooded waters recede. The king believed the dark clouds wanted to wait until it had ruined his kingdom before it did anything. He also believed the dark clouds did this to show his power over the king and its people. The king, driven by greed and the need for absolute control, saw the dark clouds as a threat. He feared the clouds' unknown magic, a magic that flowed through the rivers and valleys. The king believed the dark cloud's presence was a reminder that there was power greater than his, a power he could not control or command. So the king sought to bind the black clouds, to strip it from its magic and bend the clouds to his will. He sent his sorcerers and knights to capture the black clouds. However, the black clouds were not beings and could not be controlled by humans. The clouds were the essence of freedom and the expression of the untamed. In his desperation, the king, along with a wizard, performed a dark ritual, one that would banish the dark clouds from his kingdom forever. He believed that by casting the dark clouds out, he could secure his kingdom, free from any challenge to his reign. And so, the black clouds were driven from the land, exiled to wander the skies in search of a new home. The clouds traveled across realms, through storms and calm skies alike, until it found this place, the Enchanted Mountains. Here, the black clouds discovered a sanctuary, a land as old and as magical as it was. The mountains welcomed the clouds, their ancient peaks rising to meet the black clouds, offering it a home. And in return, the black clouds vowed to protect this land. They both understood the need to guard both their secrets and magic. But the black clouds did not forget the memory of its exile. Like a storm that never fully passes, it always remembered. The king who casted out the black clouds wanted to weaken it, but it only made it stronger. In the Enchanted Mountains, the black clouds grew, and its magic deepening, becoming one with the land. As the enchantment of the mountains grew, the disenchantment of loneliness found the black clouds. Every day it saw the beauty of the mountains, and thought it was a shame its beauty could not be shared. So it thought to itself, it would build a place at the top of the mountain, a white ivory tower with a charming bell tower. However, the Enchanted Mountains knew this was not a good idea, but allowed the black clouds to build the tower. After the tower was built, the black clouds and the Enchanted Mountains waited for its king and queen to come. The black clouds hoped for a good-natured king and queen because it still believed in goodness, despite being driven out a kingdom that no longer wanted it or its magic. Things were not like the dark clouds and the Enchanted Mountains thought they would be. A king and queen came. However, it didn't come alone. It brought along an evil wizard. Long before the king and queen came to the Enchanted Mountains, the evil wizard had told them stories of the mountain's great magical power. Also, a story of magical dark clouds that had been driven out to the mountains. The king and queen wasn't sure if it wanted to rule the Enchanted Mountains because it knew it could not control the mountains and the black cloud's magic. But the evil wizard enticed them with the gold that lined the walls of the Enchanted Mountains. So their greed overcame them, and the king and queen came to the Enchanted Mountains. Before they arrived, the king and queen sent word across the kingdoms of wonderful enchanted mountains with caves lined with gold. So when people heard, they came from far and near to have a better life for themselves and their family. The king, queen, and evil wizard were happy that the people wanted to live in the mountains, and they now had people to rule. They hosted a gathering to tell the people they were there to serve them, and in exchange they would be taken care of and given food, shelter, and gold. The next day the people were made to work from sun-up to sundown in the mountains, taking all the gold from the cave for the king and queen. Then, after a long day, the people were made to sleep outside the cave in the cold, and then given small amounts of food and water to drink. The people soon became very upset with their treatment by the king, queen, and evil wizard. So when they had another gathering, the people screamed out and complained. They said they were going to leave the Enchanted Mountains and take the gold they had earned with them. However, the evil wizard spelled them all to make them stay and obey. The dark clouds roared with thunder as it watched with sorrow. This was not how it thought things would be, and the dark clouds wanted them all gone from the Enchanted Mountains. But it knew things would get worse before they got better. As unhappiness grew in the Enchanted Mountains, so did desperation and its people willing to give in to things that were unimaginable. Because like all things touched by enchantment, they are not immune to darkness. There was a wizard named Greely who had heard about the Enchanted Mountains and its people. So he thought he would go there and try to help them. Greely arrived at the Enchanted Mountains with promises on his lips and deceit in his heart. He told the people that he possessed a magic far greater than that of the wizard who had spelled them. He claimed that he could break the spell that bound them, could free them from their endless labor. To gain their trust, Greely began to freely give them pieces of gold. Then he told the people he would make sure they would be rich and live happy anywhere they wished. And their answer to freedom was simple. Whispering, Greely told the people to take the gold they had taken from the caves and bring it with them. He would be waiting at the bottom of the mountains to take them away. Desperate for release, the people believed him. They gathered all the gold they had worked so hard to collect, filling sacks and crates with every last coin, every shimmering piece of treasure. They trusted that this mysterious wizard, Greely, was their savior. But Greely was no savior. He was a master of deception, and his true intentions were far darker. Greely had no intention of freeing them. His plan was simple: to gather the gold, disappear into the shadows, and leave the people to their fate. He waited at the base of the Enchanted Mountains, just as he had promised. The people came carrying their gold, eyes full of hope. "You have done well," Greely told them as his voice dripped with false kindness. He then told them to hand over the gold, and their freedom would come soon. But as the last bag of gold was given, a dark smile crept across Greely's face. Without another word, he turned away, disappearing into the misty fog that curled around the base of the mountains, leaving the people behind, still bound by the wizard's spell. The people stood there, waiting, confused. They had given everything, and yet nothing had changed. The spell still held them tight, and their supposed savior had vanished with all the gold. Greely had tricked them, used their desperation against them, and left them with nothing. Soon a hard wind came rushing past them. The king and queen's evil wizard appeared. He was very angry with the people who tried to leave the mountains with the gold. He had Greely to thank. You see, Greely was not just a wandering trickster. He was in fact the friend and ally of the very wizard who had held the people. Together they concocted a plan to betray the workers and reap the rewards of their suffering. The wizard, true to his word, split the gold with Greely. The two wizards reveled in their success, their friendship solidified by the wealth they had stolen. Now he needed to deal with the people that tried to escape and leave with the gold. So he conjured a dark spell that sent for the wrath. This was no ordinary creature. It was a monstrous, fearsome beast born from the deepest shadows of the night. Standing taller than the tallest trees, the wrath had the body of a massive, muscular panther, but its fur was as dark as the midnight sky, absorbing all light and casting a shadow that chilled the air around it. Its eyes glowed a fiery red, burning with an insatiable rage that seemed to flicker like flames in a storm. Its mouth, filled with rows of sharp, jagged teeth, could emit a roar that shook the very earth, a sound so terrifying it could freeze the bravest of hearts in an instant. The wrath stood there with its massive claws, sharp as swords, extended from its powerful paws, capable of tearing through rock and steel alike. The creature began to move with a predatory grace, every step exuding power and menace, as if it were the embodiment of the wizard's darkest desires. The wrath, with its fiery red eyes, locked onto the fleeing people. It moved with terrifying speed, each powerful stride closing the distance between itself and the panicked people who had dared to take the treasure and leave the mountains. One by one, the people glanced back, only to see the monstrous form of the wrath tearing through the landscape, its massive claws ripping up rocks and trees as if they were mere paper. The creature's rage was palpable, a dark force that threatened to consume them all. With their hearts pounding in their chests and fear gripping their souls, their only thought was survival as they sprinted back toward the cave, their once steady steps now frantic and desperate. The dark clouds had been watching the entire scene unfold and grew furious as it saw the wrath charging toward the helpless people. In its anger, the dark clouds called upon its ancient ally, the dreamy red apple tree, which possessed the power to produce enchanted dark apples. Responding to the cloud's summons, the tree unleashed a torrent of dark apples from its branches. In an instant, a storm of these enchanted apples rained down upon the raging wrath, each one striking with the force of a thunderbolt. The relentless assault battered the beast, driving it back step by step, until the wrath was finally forced to retreat into the shadows from which it had emerged. The combined magic of the dark clouds and the dreamy red apple tree had saved the people, protecting them from the monstrous creature's fury. The Enchanted Mountains, sensing the growing danger, decided to intervene as well. They summoned their loyal snowbirds, swift and graceful creatures with wings as white as fresh snow. At the mountain's call, the snowbirds soared into action, weaving through the skies and gathering in great numbers above the cave. With a flurry of wings, they began to create a magical veil of snow, draping it over the entrance of the cave. The veil shimmered and sparkled, concealing the cave from view and shielding the people inside from the evil wizard's gaze. Under the cover of this enchanted veil, the people were able to slip away quietly, escaping the clutches of the wizard and the mountains that had once held them captive. The evil wizard watched in frustration as the combined magic of the dark clouds and the enchanted mountains allowed the people to escape. They had outwitted him this time, slipping through his grasp like shadows. But he vowed to be ready when the next opportunity arose. Not all was lost, however. He still had control over those who remained in the mountains, the ones too terrified of his wrath to even think about leaving. Yet one significant obstacle remained: the king and queen. If he could eliminate them, the Enchanted Mountains and the rest of the gold hidden in the caves would be his for the taking. The wizard's eyes narrowed with dark intent, already plotting his next move. This brings us to the end of the very first episode of the Origins of Enchantment podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the mystic tales of the dark clouds and the Enchanted Mountains. Here you will learn that every story holds a piece of ancient magic and timeless wisdom. Thank you for joining us on this adventure. Your support and curiosity are what make these stories come to life, and we can't wait to share more with you in the episodes to come. Remember, every ending is just the beginning of a new tale. So stay tuned, stay enchanted, and until next time, keep unlocking the magic.